Donald Trump's been laying out ideas for police reform. He gave a speech at the White House yesterday. Not for the first time, he was tweeting law and order. He does this every so often, does it in capital letters always. Today, though, he was saying this.
Americans also believe we must improve accountability, increase transparency, and invest more resources in police training, recruiting, and community engagement.
And this is how the president's planning to do that.
Today, I'm signing an executive order encouraging police departments nationwide to adopt the highest professional standards to serve their communities. These standards will be as high and as strong as there is on earth.
Well, the president didn't take any questions after that statement, but there are plenty of questions to be asked about exactly what this means in practical terms and when it all might happen. We know his plans include banning chokeholds unless an officer's life is at risk, offering federal grants to improve police practices. That would include a database to trace officers with complaints against them, and encouraging the deployment of social workers alongside officers to deal with non-violent scenarios such as drug use and homelessness. Well, let's have a look at some of the reaction to this. The Democrat, Chuck Schumer, minority leader in the Senate, says this will not deliver the comprehensive, meaningful change and accountability in our nation's police departments that Americans are demanding. Vanita Gupta, a civil rights lawyer who was acting Assistant Attorney General under President Obama, says the executive order is an attempt to shift focus from the dangerous rhetoric and policies the president has previously promoted, and goes on, a piecemeal effort that won't achieve the transformative change needed to heal America. And this is the reaction of a woman called Kimberly Crenshaw. She's a civil rights advocate. She started the Say Her Name campaign, which you may have heard of. It highlights black women who've been killed by US police. And this is her reaction.
This is a president that himself led an attack on peaceful protesters just a couple weeks ago in order to stage a photo op. So the idea that suddenly he is now in front of this issue, I think really shows just how much power is coming from the streets upward. Now, let's not forget at the same time that the one thing that this president has said is not on the table, and is probably one of the most important things that can be done, is lifting the qualified immunity that so many police officers have that makes it so difficult to actually seek accountability through suing them.
Well, President Trump also met privately with families who've been affected by racial and police violence. Here's what he said about doing that.
Many of these families lost their loved ones in deadly interactions with police. To all of the hurting families, I want you to know that all Americans mourn by your side. Your loved ones will not have died in vain.
Well, Anthony Zerka was watching that in Washington. Here's his reaction.
It's a reflection of the breadth of popular support for some sort of police reform nationwide that he has decided to take these actions. You have to remember, however, that what he's putting forward in this executive order, they're guidelines, they're recommendations, they're things that he's encouraging police departments across the country to cooperate with. And if they do so, then they will be prioritized with existing federal grant money. So even say the chokehold ban, he's not outlawing chokeholds across the United States. He's saying police departments should do that, and if they do outlaw chokeholds, then they will be given access to a large pool of federal money that is available for law enforcement that Congress has already authorized.
No, we should say some changes have already been implemented in parts of the US. In Minneapolis, for example, council members have announced plans to dismantle the police department. San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York and Chicago are among other cities that have pledged to reform their use of force policies and to take further measures to root out racist officers. And there's been a particular focus on Atlanta after Rayshard Brooks, an African-American man, was shot dead by a white officer last week. The city's mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, also wants changes on when lethal force can be used. And that includes a duty to intervene if a police officer sees misconduct by a colleague. Here's more of what the mayor said.
I know that it is my responsibility as mayor of this great city for us to continue to work to put that anger and that sadness into action.
Now, one place that's become somewhat of a case study for police reform is Camden in New Jersey. It dismantled its police force and started again, and the city now has its lowest crime rate in 50 years. The BBC's Neda Tawfik has been there to find out more.
Halfway between New York City and Washington, D.C., Camden was infamous as America's poorest and most crime-ridden city.
All right, there we go.
Now it's gaining national attention for the way it's rethinking policing. In 2013, the city's police department was disbanded. One of the officials that led the county takeover was Lou Capelli. He says it took bipartisan cooperation, perseverance, and a willingness to go to battle with the police unions.
Oh, it was a big fight, and we were told all along, until the day this happened, you're not going to be able to do this, we're going to stop you in court. They had political, trying to get political support, people coming to our meetings, death threats.
Captain Zakeem James was hired back onto the new force. As a black man, he says he's had negative interactions with the police. It's one of the reasons he became an officer in the first place.
We train in de-escalation, and that's the key, de-escalation and conversation. It's the focus of our department, building partnerships with the community and other agencies. We realized that we couldn't arrest our way out of the problem, so we had to change our tactics.
So it's drive-through service.
While community block parties and policing alone can't solve racial inequality, Camden's officers are seeing the value in redefining their job description. Neda Tawfik, BBC News, Camden, New Jersey.